Hey, how's it going, guys? So we're back with another Star Wars reaction video. If you're new channel, welcome. Now, a while ago, I did cover a video that explained the Imperial ranks, the Empire ranks, and basically it was a bit of a ride because the whole time I watched Star Wars, I always saw like those blue and red and sometimes yellow squares on the officer uniforms, and I keep on thinking like, how do you guys know what rank that is? And because I mean they almost look similar, just the number and color of it, but they did explain. But however, it's gonna take a little while for something like that to be like memorized or actually understand. But now we're gonna be moving on to all first order ranks in Insignia. Now we're gonna see how different they are, because I'm pretty sure the first order was created by remnants of the Imperials, and I just pray that their ranks are a little bit more unique, so maybe it's a little bit easier to like differentiate the ranks instead of going what's the difference. But either way, we'll see how it is presented in the video. So without anything else, let's just jump into it.
Hello and welcome to another Star Wars canon lore video, and today we are looking at the officers of the First Order. All of the information for today's video comes from both the Star Wars visual guide for The Force Awakens and my kind of knowledge of how Star Wars ranking and Star Wars military structures generally work. I'm going to put a link down in the description to somewhere where you can actually buy that book, and if you do, it will help me out because I get a little bit of what you spend. Anyway, let's get right into it with the first two ranks in the First Order, Squad Leader and Sergeant. Now, how they kind of separate ranks in the First Order military hierarchy is not really clear to me, but these two positions seem to be for non-commissioned officers. At this point, I think it would also probably be helpful to look at how the First Order distinguishes between different personnel of different ranks. Unlike the Imperials and the Rebel Alliance, who used typically a rank plaque on the front of their uniforms, the First Order instead wear their rank insignias on the left sleeve of their uniform, and this is supposed to, of course, invoke Nazi imagery, as with much of what the First Order does. Each one of these ranks would also have unique stormtrooper pauldrons, and a pauldron is essentially the piece of armor that you would wear over your shoulder to designate your rank, and there'd also be designated uniform colors. There were also other ways to identify rank, which I'm not going to really get into in this video. One way is hats, and some special officers would wear hats. An example of that is Lieutenant Mitaka. Officers would often also have code cylinders, and these would give them access to sensitive information and would allow them to go into otherwise restricted areas. So let's go back to Squad Leaders and Sergeant, the first two ranks within the First Order military hierarchy. Both of these ranks would wear black uniforms when not in their stormtrooper armors. When in armor, the squad leader would have a white colored pauldron and the sergeant had a black one. A squad leader's rank cuff had the words HAL 4 on it, while a sergeant's had the words Row 8. And these were both famous squads within the old Galactic Empire.
So this is words rather than colors.
They draw from old Imperial legends, old Imperial stories, and old Imperial heroes. It is kind of unclear to me how the power of a squad leader and a sergeant would have differed, although I guess a squad leader would probably have control over a few people, while a sergeant would have had control over a few different squad leaders, or perhaps a larger group of people. However, I think it's pretty likely that neither the squad leader or the sergeant was making high-level, tactical decisions. Next in the hierarchy are the ranks of lieutenant and captain, and as I guessed earlier, these are probably the lowest level officers within the First Order military. When in armor, the lieutenant and the captain would have red pauldrons.
I'm a lieutenant, I'm at the bottom when it comes to officer ranks.
When out of their armor, they would both wear light gray uniforms. Now, of course, the rank insignia is different, so for a lieutenant, they had the word power on their cuff, and for a captain, they had the word Dylan. Power was an admiral within the Galactic Empire, and Dylan was some sort of hero. We don't know exactly what he did. So again, we see the trend of naming First Order ranks after Imperial icons. We're not really sure how much more power a captain had over a lieutenant, or how much power the two ranks had generally, but these probably would have been the highest ranking officers on most military ships, and most small ships probably would have had one captain and one lieutenant, while the larger Star Destroyers probably had some higher ranking officers and maybe multiple captains and probably many lieutenants. These ranks would most likely see some action on the battlefield too, and certainly a captain, I think, would be expected to lead large groups of people. I do just want to turn to Captain Phasma for a second, because despite what the name suggests, she's not actually a captain. And we actually see her making important strategic decisions with Kylo Ren and General Hux, and this is what the Visual Dictionary says about her role. Although her position could easily afford her a war room away from the battlefield, Phasma insists on seeing combat operations finished, so she's clearly some sort of general or other high-ranking officer. Let's move on to the higher ranks of Major.
Or maybe
and
she has the
Colonel.
same rank,
Both
but
of
she
these
has
positions
just
will
battlefield
wear
authority.
teal uniforms, and of course, as with all officers, as I previously mentioned, if in Stormtrooper armor, would have the red shoulder. The Major's rank insignia had Tarkin on it, and I think we all know who Tarkin is. He was extremely powerful within the Empire. He was a Grand Moff, and he was a governor of an entire sector and all of the Outer Rim. The rank of Colonel has an insignia which has Kaplan on it, and he was some sort of unidentified Imperial warlord. Again, what exactly these two positions would do is kind of hard to say, but most likely a Colonel, and typically this is the case in the Star Wars universe, would be more concerned about
you can see
general
it on the left
military
sleeve right there,
operations
at
rather
near
than the
the wrist.
goings-on of a single battle or a single base. That's not to say that colonels wouldn't oversee single battles, but they generally had larger responsibilities and were responsible for kind of coordinating the entire military along with the other higher officers. Majors, on the other hand, were probably the highest ranking officer who actually oversaw how a ship operated or how a military base operated. So while there would often be generals and admirals and whoever else on a Star Destroyer, it would probably be the Major who was in control of, how the Star Destroyer actually operated on a day-to-day basis. That being said, Majors probably did contribute to overall military strategy as well. There was one Major mentioned actually in the X-Wing miniatures game named Major Stryden, and he had his own command shuttle, so that kind of indicates that he was a pretty important person. Above these two ranks are the highest of the standard military ranks, and that's General and Admiral. These two officers wore gray uniforms, and instead of having the Aurebesh rank insignias like all the lower positions, they just had two lines going across their arm. An Admiral has two black lines outlined in red, while a General has two black lines outlined in blue. Generals and admirals were responsible for overseeing the military on its highest levels, with admirals probably being more concerned with how the fleet would operate. There are most likely sub-ranks within the general and admiral positions.
that's how it is.
Look, for example, at General Hux. He makes
Admirals are in
grand
charge of the
strategic
fleet, generals are in charge of
decisions
the
and is
troops.
part of the First Order High Command. And presumably not every First Order general or admiral has the same amount of power that he does. Now, above all else in the First Order was Supreme Leader Snoke. And just look at his name, Supreme Leader. He clearly has control over everything that the First Order does, and this would include military operations and general military strategy. He's obviously got no rank insignia, and his uniform seems to be a bathrobe, so there's not a whole lot that we can take
My
from
rank
his
speaks
appearance
for
and stuff.
itself.
But anyway, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments. My question for today is this. You have to make a rank insignia for Supreme Leader Snoke. It would be one of a kind, obviously. What do you make it? Do you make it an armband, kind of like the First Order uses? And if so, what do you have it say? And if not, how exactly would you make it so it looks badass enough for Snoke? Anyways, guys, thank you once again for watching, and of course, may the Force be with you.
Okay, so that was all First Order ranks and insignias. I say this was a little less confusing compared to the Imperials, because the Imperials, you guys seen it. So many like red and blue boxes and everything. I think the only way you could differentiate some of them are, Grand Admirals because of the yellow boxes here and there. But this is what I see from the First Order. There are less ranks because in the Imperials there was like a junior lieutenant, a senior captain, and all that. So they had a lot more like variety of ranks. But this one is just simple: lieutenant, captain, zoop, colonel. But what I see on there is instead of like colorful rectangles or boxes and like you said, like onto the chest, they seem to like pay tribute to certain well-known Imperial officers. That's why, as you said, when it's on the wrist, they are certain words, like certain names. So it looks like they are honoring certain certain Imperial how do you say? I don't want to say war heroes, but certain Imperial figures, and like paying tribute to them. So that's why they have the names on the ranks. And basically, for the First Order, instead of knowing the colors and the order of them, you have to be able to read those words and know the names. So you'd be like, oh, okay, so that's a colonel, that's a captain, that's a lieutenant. But for me, if this was real life, I would be a lieutenant, so I'll be the lowest of the officers, but however, still have some authority over the enlisted. The sergeants, the corporals, the privates, and all that. But either way, this was a little bit easier. The rank structure is a lot smaller because there's a huge huge gap between like captain all the way to major and colonel. Well, captain and then major, but I'm just saying like there's not many ranks compared to the Imperials. But anyways, this was a really great video. I really liked it, but I just didn't know it was on the sleeves because I was thinking like, how do you guys know who's who or like what ranks there are? But I guess the left sleeve is basically what you have to focus on. But anyways, this was a great video and it was very informative. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video because I really did. And make sure to hit that notification bell so you know when I drop another video. And thank you so much for your support, guys. I really do appreciate it. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.